right now we are joined by Tea Party Republican candidate Matt Bevin. He is running for the Republican primary in the state of Kentucky. Now you might say, hold on a minute, Kentucky has 2 Republican senators already, Rand Paul and Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Why in God's earth would anyone primary one of those stalwart conservative Republicans? Well, Matt Bevin, why on earth are you primarying Senator Mitch McConnell, the most powerful Republican in the Senate?
It's a great question. Thanks for having me on. I wish, indeed, we had 2 stalwart conservative Republicans serving us. I would dare to say perhaps there's just one, and the reason I'm running against Mitch McConnell is that while he does claim to be a conservative, so many of his votes through the years, and even of late, have really been anything other than the votes of a conservative.
Well, now the other one, Rand Paul, who you just seem to suggest is a true conservative, he has endorsed Mitch McConnell. So how do you square that circle?
He has. He endorsed Mitch McConnell long before I ever got into this race. That has been an arrangement that was made now for quite some time, and he's staying with that, and I respect the fact that he's doing so. But Rand Paul is one vote. He'll walk into the voting booth on May 20th. He'll vote one time. Everyone who ultimately coalesced behind him within the Tea Party movement, within the GOP establishment itself, within all the Second Amendment groups, et cetera, every single group that ultimately coalesced behind him has already endorsed me or is supporting me. So I'm not too concerned about that at all. I respect Rand, and I think he's making decisions he needs to make for reasons that he has.
All right, so you say he's not conservative enough. I'm looking here at several ratings that say, well, the Campaign for Working Families gave Mitch McConnell a 100% approval rating. The National Right to Life gave him a 100% approval rating. The American Conservative Union gave him a 100% conservative rating. That's higher than those wussy rhinos, Tom Coburn, and Jim DeMint, who now runs the Heritage Foundation.
I'm going to tell Senator DeMint you called him a wussy rhino.
Well, apparently, he, Mitch McConnell has a more conservative record than Tom Coburn, for goodness sakes.
It's a good point, Matt Bevin.
I think it's interesting. So much effort is sometimes put on making sure these scorecards look good, and nobody is better than Mitch McConnell at making sure that they look good on paper. But I would ask you, is a conservative someone who would have voted for the whole multitude of bailouts using our money to bail out irresponsible companies that Mitch McConnell has? I don't think so. Would a conservative have voted 10 straight times in a row with no concessions to the contrary to raise the debt ceiling? Would a conservative have voted time and time again in 1986 for amnesty, in 2006 for amnesty, in 2007, and then turn around and change his vote after it failed to make it look like he was against it so that he'd look good on a scorecard? This is a man who is focused on the scorecard and not on his constituents, not on the will of the people, and not on doing the right thing.
But wait, these are independent groups that look at his record and they say, look, we find this guy to be acceptable to us. Why is he not acceptable to you?
It isn't a function of whether he's acceptable to me. I'm just one of his constituents at this time. I do take issue with the fact that he says one thing in Kentucky, but he does another thing in Washington. And I am in this race because I spent months traveling around the state before getting into this because people had asked me if I would consider doing so. And I said, I want to understand, first of all, is there a need for change? Do people really have an appetite for change? Are they willing to make a stance on that difference that they're looking for? And do I think I'm in a position to be able to offer them an alternative? And so in doing so, it became clear that the people of Kentucky feel very disconnected. They want a true leader who will take them into the future. They do not see that 30 years of Mitch McConnell needs to be extended.
Matt Bevin is our guest. He is running in the Republican primary in Kentucky against Senator Mitch McConnell. And we had Ann Coulter on the show about a month ago, and we were talking about how it looks like Lindsey Graham in South Carolina is going to be primaried, and she said, absolutely, Lindsey Graham is part of the problem in Washington. He should be primaried. But then she said, but it is absolutely insane to primary Mitch McConnell. Matt Bevin, what do you know that Ann Coulter doesn't know? And Ann Coulter isn't a rhino, right?
I've never met Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter's never taken the time to speak with me or understand one thing about what the people of Kentucky are looking for or what the reasons for my being in this race are. So I can't speak to her thought process at all. All I know is that the people who in Kentucky do not feel represented. They want someone who, at this time of financial crisis that we are in this nation and the unsustainable financial path that we're on, they want someone who's actually been in the private sector at least one day in their lives. They want someone who's created a job that the taxpayers haven't paid for.
That, you're making a good point. And listen, on paper, you're exactly the kind of candidate I love to run for Senate. You are a former captain in the Army. You have not run for political office before, or held political office, I should say. You come from the business world. In fact, you're independently wealthy, are you not?
It depends on how one would define that. I've been very blessed. I've done okay.
Given that, a lot of people have criticized your campaign because it is draining very important money from some of the other races, like the Louisiana race, the North Carolina race, where Arkansas race currently held. These are red states currently held by Democrats, where this could actually help the Republicans gain a majority in the Senate. Given the fact that you've been a wealthy businessman, would you vow to only personally finance your campaign and not accept money from outside donors or from PAC groups? That way, all of that other money that people are donating would go to states where we could get a Republican majority.
Yeah, absolutely not. I think that's a foolish way to go about running a campaign. I think we've seen people try to do that in any number of states on each coast. California, Connecticut, other places where people have put inordinate amounts of their own money into a campaign. You can't buy a campaign. I'm running against a man who's trying to do exactly that. He's using other people's money, but I'm running against a man who spent $22 million the last time 6 years ago to earn his seat. He does it by blanketing the airwaves and not talking to the people. I'm spending the time from the ground up. I would rather have $1 from someone and greater confidence that they would turn out and vote. It's imperative that the people's voice be heard. You make a quick point. I want to touch on something real quick. People focus on the vote. And it's important to have someone who votes a certain way. And incidentally, he only started voting in a pro-life way when he got to be about the age of 50 and realized he could get more votes in Kentucky being pro-life than pro-choice. That's when he discovered he was a pro-life candidate. But it's interesting. We need people who will do more than vote. We need someone who's a true voice and will fight with conviction on the things that the people need to have brought forward and not be worried about a scorecard that will allow them to look good once every 6 years so they can be reelected.
You're also running against a guy, and I just want to repeat this, that has a 100% rating of approval from the Campaign for Working Families, the National Right to Life, and the American Conservative Union. And by doing so, you're going to be sort of knocking down a guy who is in a safe seat to begin with, when the real focus ought to be taking back the Senate. What do you say to that?
It's interesting that, I appreciate you saying I'm knocking down a guy. I'm actually not doing anything to try to knock him down other than speak to his record. And the beautiful thing about a primary is the fact that it gives people an alternative. We will come on May 20th out of the gate with somebody that the voters of Kentucky feel is their best representative to take them forward into the general election.
All right, Matt Bevin, he is running against Mitch McConnell. He is a Tea Party Republican, and he is in it for the long haul, it certainly seems. And listen, I appreciate you coming on. You knew that we were going to challenge you. It's not like you haven't been challenged on these issues, and you certainly had all the answers ready for us.
Well, I welcome it. I thank you so much. People can go to mattbevin.com if they want to learn more about where I stand, and I'd be welcoming any support that people want to give.
Great. Matt Bevin, that's spelled Bevin, mattbevin.com.
All right, thanks, Matt.